In this video, I'm going to explain what is expected of you when you are making a reservation, whether you are there at the hotel in person or you're on the phone. So a hotel clerk is going to ask you a series of questions, and you need to answer these questions with full answers, full sentences, not just the information. You need to practice speaking with full sentences. So let's see what is expected of you. So the person will probably ask you about your first name and your last name. The person might say, "What's your first name?" And you have to say, "My first name is," and then you give your first name. The person might say also, "What's your given name?" Given name is the same thing as the first name. So the person says, "What's your given name? Can I have your given name?" And then you give, "My given name is." So you use the same words that the person just used with you. The person will probably ask you about your last name. "What's your last name? Can I have your last name, please?" And then you give your last name. You would say, "My last name is," you say it, you say your last name. Let's say, for example, that the name is Do, and you are, for a minute, imagine you are a clerk, you're not sure if you understood well, you want some clarification. So the clerk might say, can you spell that out, please? Can you spell it, please? And then you will spell it. So be prepared to spell words. So you would say, "Oh yeah, it's spelled DOE, dough." Normally, what we do is we start by saying it is spelled, then we spell the word, and then we repeat the word at the end. This is the normal procedure. It is spelled DOE, dough. Then the person will ask you about your address. "Can I have your address, please?" So you're expected to give the civic number first. So the civic number could be something like 325, or you could say 325. That would be the same thing. You normally divide the digits. For example, it could be two digits at a time. If there are four digits, you could say 1296, 1296. And then you give the name of the street, Church Street. You say the word street or avenue or boulevard after the name of the street. And then the person will probably ask you if there is an apartment. So address number two is for normally apartment numbers. So the clerk will probably say, "Is there an apartment?" And then you could say, "Yes, my apartment number is 26, for example." If there is no apartment number, you can simply say, "No, there is no apartment number." And then the person will want to know the name of the city where you are from. So the clerk, will probably say, "Can I have the name of the city, please?" Or, "What city are you from?" Or, "Where are you from?" Or, "What city do you live in?" And then you give the name of the city. And then the person will want to know about your province or state. And then the person would probably say, "What province is this in?" What province is this in? This referring to the name of the city that was mentioned. If you just said, for example, okay, Toronto, "I'm from Toronto," and the person doesn't know where Toronto is, the person will say, "What province is that in?" Or, "What province is Toronto in?" And then you say, "Toronto is in," and then you name the state or the province. Very often they will ask you about your postal code or your zip code. So you would say, my zip code is, or my postal code is, and then you give the information. If it's a postal code, you will have to spell the letters and the numbers. So make sure that you know your alphabet. And then the clerk will ask you about your phone number and will probably ask you to start with the area code. What's your area code and phone number, please? Can I have your area code and phone number, please? And so you start with the area code. Those are the first three digits. For example, 418 is an area code that is very popular in Quebec. 613 is one that is also very popular in Ontario. So those are area codes. And then you give the rest of the number. You give the three other digits one at a time. For example, 762, and then because you have four other digits, you can combine them by two, two at a time. So you would say, for example, 1296. And then the person will ask you about your email address. So make sure again that you know your alphabet, because you might have to spell your email address. The ending normally of the an email address ends with at. That's the letter A with almost like a full circle around it, at. Then you have the service provider, for example, Hotmail, at Hotmail. Then you would say dot. The dot is like the period there separating Hotmail and com. So you would say at hotmail.com. Dot. Don't forget to say dot. Then the clerk will probably ask you, when will you check in? When will you check in? The question is in the future, so your answer needs to be in the future as well. You would say, I'll check in on, and you give a date. I'll check in on November 2nd. Don't forget that dates, okay, include ordinal numbers, first, second, third, fourth, and so on. When will you check out? I'll check out on November 5th. I'll check out on November 5th. Again, the answer needs to be in the future if the question is also in the future. The person will probably ask a question concerning the number of guests. So the person might say, how many guests will there be? How many guests will be staying at the hotel? How many guests will be staying at that room? And so you give the information again in the same verb tense. Okay, there will be, again, you need to put it in the future. If the question was in the future, you need to answer with the future tense. To conclude this reservation, to finish the reservation, you will probably have to give information regarding the method of payment. And the person will say, how will you be paying? Or the person could say, will you be paying with a credit card? And then you would say, yes, I'll be paying with a credit card. I'll be using my Visa. I'll be using my MasterCard. Or you can also answer with a question. You could say, do you accept? Do you accept MasterCard? Do you accept Visa? And the person will say, yes, we do. And then the person will say, can I have the number, please? And then you give the number again. Again, if you have multiple numbers, it's a good thing to, for example, give two numbers at a time. So, for example, here it would be 12, 34, 56, 78, 90, 12, 34, 56. Note how I kind of pause in between each sets. For example, 12, 34, 56, 78, 90, 12, 34, 56. There's a slight pause in between. Then the person will probably ask you about the expiration date because the credit cards they expire. Okay, so the expiration date is normally just below the number. Don't forget, the first two numbers represent a month. So here, that would be, for example, May. So when the person asks about the expiration date, when is the expiration date? You would answer the expiration date is May, and then you give the year, May 21. Finally, the clerk will probably ask you a question regarding the security code or the CVC at the back of the card. The CVC is a code, it's a security code that you have to give when you make reservations, especially when you make them on the phone. So the person will say, "Can I have the security code, please?" Or "Can I have the CVC code, please?" And then you give the CVC code is, and then you give the number.